All right, boys and girls, this is our next video. It is patterns of 10 and 100. And let me go ahead and make that full screen. Patterns of 10 and 100. Our TEK is to determine the products of a number in 10 or 100 using properties of operations and place value understanding. Down here is your vocabulary. So you can pause the video and take a peek at that if you so need to. As a review, when we move to the left on our place value chart, we're multiplying by 10 because it takes 10 100. It takes 10 ones to make a 10, and it takes 10 tens to make a 100, 10 100s to make 1,000, and so on and so on and so on. So there you go. Okay, this sheet right here is something that we're going to be filling out in class. There's going to be cards. We're going to write down factors and products. Remember, a factor is one of the numbers that we're multiplying by. Product is our end result. It's our answer to the multiplication problem. So here is our strategies for multiplying by tens and 100s. The first thing that we do is we box in our non-zero numbers. And I can't push the 9. There we go. Our non-zero numbers. And we multiply those two numbers together. So 9 times 1 equals 9. Then we count the zeros in the factors and move them to the end of the product. So here I have I can't do it. Here I have 2 zeros. I'm moving them to the end. So 9 times 100 ends up being 900. So, but what about these? For example, let's look at 4 times 20. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the 4 and the 2. I'm going to box those two in. Those are my non-zero numbers. Next, I'm going to go ahead and multiply 4 times 2, and I get 8. 4 times 2 is 8. Finally, I count all my zeros, which is, there's just 1, and I add it to the end. So 4 times 20 equals 80. All right, take another look. So what do I do if both numbers end in a 0? That's pretty simple. So we have 60 and 20. Again, I'm going to box my two non-zero numbers, the 6 and the 2. I get 12. Next, I'm going to count my zeros. And I have 2 zeros, one right here with the 60 and one right there with the 20. Put them at the end. And so I put my 2 zeros there. So 60 times 20 equals 1,200. And let me go ahead and put that comma in there so that way we're separating our periods. A little something interesting happens on this one. And if you'd like to try it yourself, go ahead and pause the video and try it out on your own. All right, if you didn't pause it, you're following along with me. So I have 500 times 40. Like you guessed, the first thing I'm going to do is box my non-zero numbers, my 5 and my 4. The second step is to multiply my non-zero numbers, 5 times 4, and I get 20. Look at that. Where'd that 0 come from right here? I guess I could circle it. Where'd that 0 come from? Well, 0 came from when I multiply 5 times 4, and you get 20. That's okay. That's going to stay there. I don't have any problem with that 0 staying there. We're not even going to pay attention to it for right now. We're still just going to follow our steps. A lot of times, this is how the test writers are going to try and trick us. They're going to ask for numbers, and they're going to expect you to freak out when you see that extra 0 in there. So let's look at our last step. It's still the same. We count our zeros in our numbers that we boxed. So I've got 2 zeros here. I've got 1 0 here. 2 zeros and 1 0. That makes 3 zeros. I'm going to put those at the end. So now my number is 20,000. So 500 times 40 equals 20,000. You may have thought that we were only going to have 3 zeros in this number, but actually there's 4 because when we multiplied 5 times 4, we got 20. Here's actually our last slide. So here's a little bit another tricky situation. I've got a 0 smack dab right there in the middle of two non-zero numbers. What do? Am I going to box those two non-zero numbers and leave that 0 and count it? No. If it's in the middle, we have to count it as the entire number. So I'm going to box in 204 and my 1. 204 times 1, multiply those two together, and I get 204. And finally, the last step, still the same, count my 0, the zeros that are at the end. So let me say that again. We only count the zeros that are at the end. The ones that are in the middle like that, we can't count that because it's sandwiched between two non-zero numbers. That one's not going to count. Only one that we count, the only zeros that we count are the ones that are at the end. So because I have 1 0 at the end, I bring it over to the end. So 204 times 10 equals 2040. Let's go ahead and put our comma in there to separate our period. Again, if you have any questions on multiplying by tens and 100, then bring it to class, write it on your WISC under the question section, and I hope this video helps.